Hey, Mr. Wiedemer here from Mr. Wiedemer's History. Today we're going to go 6.2 Progressivism Part 2. Now, objective, you guys be able to describe the progressive era in American history and how it changed the country. Here we go. Alright, first up, we're talking about Mulder versus Oregon. Alright, this is about equal rights for women. Now, there's an Oregon law limiting female factory workers to only 10 hours a day. And now it went to National Supreme Court, and they upheld the Oregon law, and it said the activists, women's rights groups, said it violated women's rights to work as long as they wanted to. And according to this ruling, women were unequal and inferior to men. So it really set off, just backlash of sexism and inequality in the races with Mueller versus Oregon. Right? Next up, protecting children. As we learned about last unit, child labor was really crazy. Children working in factories, children working in the coal mines, not good conditions, but they had to work because the families needed the extra money just to make ends meet. But in 1904, reformers wanted to change this, wanted to abolish child labor. And eventually in 1938, with the Fair Labor Standards Act, cannot talk. The Fair Labor Standards Act outlawed child labor for good. So no more child labor in America after 1938, thanks to the Fair Labor Standards Act. Hey, we have several amendments that were passed during the Progressive Era. Several key amendments in the United States. It's the 16th Amendment, which is corporate income tax. It's your income tax amendment. 17th, we talked about direct election of senators, the most important Progressive Era reform out there, where we, the people of the United States, get to elect the senators. And then we get 18th, prohibited alcohol, no more alcohol, United States is dry. And then 19th Amendment, women's suffrage. So these amendments, these important amendments in American history, all progressive amendments. 16th, income tax. 17th, direct election of senators. 18th, prohibited alcohol. And 19th, women get the right to vote. Franchise, suffrage, the right to vote. 19th Amendment in 1920. So from 1913 to 1920. All right, progressive era amendments. U.S. voted dry. So limits of progressivism. Now, progressivism is great, but there's, with every great thing, there's drawbacks, there's limits. It was very hard to achieve these goals at a national level, but state and local level, they work good. And the Senate and the courts are very conservative. Progressivism is a very liberal thing, helping the poor out, changing society. That's very, giving people more rights. It's very liberal. And Senate and the courts were not liberal, especially the Senate, because they don't like the 17th Amendment. Direct election of themselves. They liked it the way they were, big money millionaires. Then the muckrakers, exposed corruption of trusts, life in cities, bribery, and graft. But many of these evils seem to be beyond the control of the national government. They couldn't do anything about it. And people's like, you know what? This is just the way it is. It's the way it's going to be. And so progressivism was not without its limits. Okay, it was hard to achieve nationally, but local grassroots progressivism was on it. It was a grassroots promotion, grassroots, kind of like the Tea Party is today. Whole grassroots era. They had limits of progressivism, but it's really good at state and local government level. All right, forms of immigration. Okay, when it comes to immigration, progressives were not so kind. All right, progressives were very much nativists. Very much protectorate of white, white Anglo-Saxon Protestants. So immigrants, as we learned in the last chapter, immigrants, the backbone of society, backbone of America. They built this country. Well, the continuing flow of immigrants kept wages low for the unskilled because it enlarged the labor pool of the unskilled laborers. And so they competed for the unskilled jobs. And they had a hard time assimilating American culture. They wouldn't go into American culture. They know that they had their little Italy, little Chinatown and whatnot, and they wouldn't learn English, and they would just keep their own little culture. And so it was very hard. And then people they really mistrusted the immigrants, as we learned last time, in nativism. And people wanted literacy tests. They wanted more restrictions. So we can't have these immigrants doing all this stuff. And this political cartoon is just great. This shows the hypocrisy of America when it comes to immigration. It still goes on today. All these people, all these robber barons, all these big captains of industry, all came from somewhere else. They're all immigration background, either themselves or their ancestors came from somewhere else. They started from nothing and they made something of themselves. Rags to riches. And then they're turning away this guy who wants to do the same thing that they did. And so hypocrisy in America when it comes to immigration. And as we all know, it's the same thing today. Immigrants built this country, and yet we still do not respect immigration in this country like we should. And, it's the same old adage, same old story that's been going on from the very beginning. From the very beginning. Alright, reformers want immigrant children to get an education. They want to learn American history. Yes, that's why you're required to take this course, because progressive era reformers wanted everybody to know American history because they wanted to be patriotic. Patriotism, Captain America. We wanted Americans and the immigrants to learn about America, become patriots, and love this country instead of longing for their home country, longing for their ancestry home, but loving and living life here in America and becoming America strong. And late 1800s, American education was becoming free, public, and universal, so everybody's going to school. But there's still problems with a lot of immigrants are poor. They needed their children to work, and so they didn't, really get much education. But Americans are still trying to get them educated, trying to get them to school, and become assimilated into culture better if you go to school, learn American history, love this country, and that's what the progressive reformers were trying to do. Get these immigrants assimilated in early as children to become great citizens of this country. Right, to end the progressive era. Right, progressive reforms changed American society. It expanded democracy with all those, 17th Amendment, referendum, recall, direct primary, all these awesome things that expanded democracy. Remember the laboratory of democracy, Wisconsin, state governments, laboratories of democracy. And progressives really expanded democracy and what it meant for democracy to strive. Okay, reformed education system, made it pretty much required for everybody, and then also learn American history. Improved the quality of life for millions of men, women, and children around. Got rid of child labor. Women couldn't work as long. And then progressivism ended when the U.S. shifted its focus to World War I, shifted its focus to Europe. Right, 1915, the Great War is breaking out. We need to help out, and so we're going to shift our focus from internal progressive movement over to Europe. All right, a little review of progressive era. Social inequality, abuses, big business, and government corruption were rampant in the late 1800s. Progressives looked to change this. Socialism was one way, presented by Eugene V. Debs and De Leon with the Wobbles. Wobblies. Yeah, Wobblies, not Wobbles. That's totally different. So, the Wobblies. Another reform movement, social gospel, such as the Settlement House movement, the Salvation Army, Jane Addams' Whole House in Chicago, one of the most famous settlement houses, helping to pour out, teaching them about God, and also giving them, helping them out, giving them places to stay and food to eat. Right? Muckrakers, noble writers such as Ida Tarbell, Jacob Riis, all began to write about the dredges of society, the poor working conditions, poor conditions in the cities, and really bringing all this muck of America to life and into the public eye. So that's why Roosevelt called them the muckrakers. Alright, states became the laboratory of democracy, especially Wisconsin, where it all started with Robert LaFalta. Right, many governments had the direct primary, initiative, referendum, recall, more power to the people, expanding democracy. Right, direct election of senators, probably the greatest thing. 17th Amendment, 1913. Progressive era's greatest accomplishment. Upton Sinclair wrote The Jungle, opened up everybody's eyes to exposing we need things to change. we're messed up here in America, and we need things to change. So the jungle up Sinclair really opened people's eyes. Roosevelt, he created FDA to protect consumers from, being, swashbuckled. And so Roosevelt, FDA, helping consumers out, large part thanks to the jungle and Upton Sinclair. It's Mulder versus Oregon stated inequality in the workforce. 1938, Fair Labor Standards Act outlawed child labor. 16th Amendment, tax on corporate profit. 17th, direct election senators. 18th, prohibited alcohol. 19th, women's suffrage. All progressive amendments, progressive era amendments right there. Progressivism worked best at the state level than it did nationally. Nativism resurges. Reformers wanted tighter restrictions on immigration. Progressives expanded democracy, helped millions of Americans, but ended on the onset of World War I. Alright, so that is it for 6.2, Progressivism. We'll come back next time, talk a little bit about Teddy Roosevelt and all the great things he did. So, until next time, Mr. Wiedemer, study history.